Welcome to the Director's Cut podcast, a part of StoryTown radio show. In this podcast, we feature stories that didn't make the final cut for the live radio show, but they are excellent stories and need to be shared. This memory comes from Guerry McConnell. We collected several stories about Storytelling Festival founder Jimmy Neal Smith that were featured in the Country Boy with a Dream edition of the radio show. We had so many, we couldn't possibly feature them all. Here's a sweet memory from Guerry about how Jimmy Neal was involved in her wedding.
Well, I came to the 10th anniversary of the festival, the National Storytelling Festival. And I saw some storytellers. I don't know if I met Jimmy Neal then, but I came then several times thereafter and eventually met Jimmy Neal. Doc McConnell was my husband, and for a while, about 8 years, and he and Jimmy Neal were very good friends. They had been friends since before the festival had started, because Doc had a old-time medicine show, and he was invited to bring it to Jonesborough on Jonesborough days. And so Jimmy Neal and Doc got to know each other. Well, when Doc got excited about things, he just dove right in, got to know everybody, got very active with it. And so he and Jimmy Neal became very good friends. As a matter of fact, Jimmy Neal and Jeannie got married in Doc's house in Rogersville.
Oh.
And it was, well, I don't know the date, but she would. But anyway, and then Doc had been married to Virginia Russell McConnell, and they'd raised their daughter, who was also a storyteller, and also traveled with Doc on the medicine show. Anyway, so they were very close friends. And we were invited to stay at their house sometimes and watch, and one time we were invited to stay during the festival and watch the ghost telling over in Mills Park? What is that old park with the gazebo next to the storytelling?
Mill Springs?
Yeah, Mill Springs Park. And it was freezing. But we were invited, and that was very nice. And we got to park there at their house every now and then. So in 1999, Doc lost his wife, Jen, and I had lost my husband, Les, about 4 years before. So eventually we decided to get married, and Doc told Jimmy Neal, of course, first, and we had tried several churches in North Carolina, but it didn't work out. And I said, why don't we just get married at the First Baptist Church, Jonesborough? And and Doc was a Baptist, so that's fitting. So we went to Dorothy. I believe that was her name, Jimmy Neal's mother. And at that point, she had a debilitating disease, and she was wheelchair bound. But she was so excited to be able to be a part of planning the wedding. So she got in touch with the minister and the Baptist minister and arranged for the date and everything. Of course, she couldn't come, but she was able to do that. And so at the wedding, I was Jimmy Neal and Jeannie, and then his daughter Hannah, and her husband, the big guy called Rosie, and her daughter Maggie Gillenwater. And they, after the wedding, well, the church was already decorated because it'd just been after Christmas, so we didn't have to pay any money for decorations. And so Jimmy Neal took us all out to the Peerless Steakhouse, and we were married, and that was pretty awesome start to our marriage. And so Doc and Jimmy Neal stayed close all that time. And I don't know what, I know that Doc supported him, Jimmy Neal, and in many different ways.
So what was your first impression of Jimmy Neal Smith?
I never got beyond the big guy. He was very personal. He's very warm, and he was very inviting. And he invited me, even after Doc died, he invited me to come to their regular supper. They used to have Bob Browning and Jimmy Neal and their group used to have dinner at about 4:30 at Los Amigos, which is Los Amigos, over in Jonesborough. They used to have it at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. And so I was invited, but I didn't, they'd been together all their lives, and I didn't feel exactly part of it. But I liked Jimmy Neal. I was amazed at what he was able to accomplish. But I never got to know him personally or closely. He was always welcoming. I mean, if I came into his office, he'd, take time.
So did your relationship with him change after Doc had passed?
Well, I didn't see him that much because, Jimmy Neal came to the hospital as Doc was dying, and I think that must have been very hard for him because Doc was in hospice and he was pretty much skin and bones. But we go and when Jimmy Neal had the Parsons table in the Widow Brown's, we'd go over there to eat every now and again. And I remember at the Widow Brown's, it's the first time I ever had baked potato. There was a new concept. You wrapped them. Did you wrap them or just float them? It was in a rosin, and it coated the outside of the potato, and it cooked in that. And it was just amazing how this whole concept and vision came and grew. And Doc was telling me that he came over the first time because he was certainly aware of everybody over there. And I think that's, what's her name? She's one of the oldest. She and Barbara Freeman. She was a partner to Barbara Freeman, and she's still telling, and I can't remember her name. Oh, great. And then Donald Davis and all well, Donald was later on, I think. And then he had Doc, during the festival, he had Doc park his wagon out behind the Christopher Taylor building, and that was where the swapping grounds was first off. But no, we weren't really. It was a very casual relationship, and I didn't. It was interesting to go and listen to their stories, but when you haven't grown up in a town and known everybody and known all their stories, it's kind of difficult to relate. So it didn't change my perception of his vision and the amazing things that have come out of it. I mean, the more I see this town, the more I'm just, why would anybody have thought of that, But
yeah.
It just all came from Jimmy Neal. And I remember him coming when I was first working with Jules Courier on the Gathering, the stories. I went through a class for the Story Bridge, and that's not the name of it. Brigade.
Yeah.
Brigade. And he came a couple of times just to mentor and listen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was totally involved.